There are flowers that only bloom when you look up close, and there are also cracks that only show themselves when we shine true light upon them. Welcome to our channel, where we are not afraid to lift the veil on untold, hidden corners. Florida, the state of endless sunshine, beaches stretching like golden silk ribbons, and bustling destinations. Miami pulsating with electronic music, Orlando overflowing with theme parks, Key West heavy with the scent of sea salt. But hidden beneath that glamour is another world, thousands of lives quietly living in the shadows, beyond any social safety net. This is not a grand cinematic script, but a harsh reality. Soft sand abutting makeshift nylon tents, a tsunami of survival refuse. Even local authorities only dare to stand back, cautiously avoiding these sensitive areas. Under bridges, along murky canals, within dense patches of urban forest, and on vacant lots, these are the places where thousands once saw mere sunlit refuge and storm shelter. Now, they have come to call these places home in a system that long ago forgot them. In today's video, we will step into the unseen Florida together, to listen to and understand the lives left behind on the margins of this sun-drenched paradise. The rustle of palm fronds whispers in the night, wind slipping through thin sheets of nylon, bringing the smell of mildew and burning trash. Here, there are no sturdy roofs, only soggy tarps tied to tree trunks. No electricity, only the faint beam of a flashlight when someone ventures into the dark. No running water, only foul-smelling aluminum cans collecting rain. No identification, only torn hospital receipts and smeared debt papers. And hope? It quietly fades beneath the blazing sun. Many among them were not born into piles of nylon and wooden pallets. They were once servers smiling as they lifted mojitos to your lips on South Beach. Construction workers raising steel skeletons for downtown Miami's skyscrapers. Head chefs in seaside restaurants brandishing gleaming knives in a kitchen hot with spices. Florida once welcomed them with limitless opportunities, a steady job, an affordable rental room, a fresh start. But after upheavals like tearful divorces, long unpaid days, and mountain-high medical bills, everything collapsed like dry sand meeting rain. They lost their homes, their jobs, their faith, and were swept into the current of homelessness, wandering canal banks, bridge underpasses, and urban woodlands. On their skin, sweat crusts into a hardened patina, mud imprints clear on bare feet. In their eyes shimmer the pain and a single longing: to be called by name once more, to be seen, and to have a final spark of hope rekindled. By day, under the searing sun, their homes are nothing but tattered tarps stretched over rickety pallet frames, pieced together from discarded debris. When a strong wind blows, the tarp flaps like a warning that a solid shelter is a luxury dream. When night falls, darkness envelops them. They light lone candles, flickering lights ready to snuff out at any moment. Most of their daily food comes from churches or charitable organizations, sometimes a special treat that chills the soul: moldy bread, wilted vegetables, and supermarket dumpster leftovers. The rustle of plastic bags and the musty smell clinging to stale bread form a mournful symphony soaked in the taste of survival. They try to filter food through trembling hands, amid puddles mottled with oil films. Meanwhile, dengue mosquitoes buzz relentlessly, seeking veins on fragile skin, and the black water under their tents is a breeding ground for mold. Coughs echo through the night, announcing lurking illness. Occasionally, wild creatures like snakes or raccoons slip into the trash heaps, keeping them ever vigilant. When the rainy season arrives, storms pour down like buckets, washing away even hope. Floodwaters rise swiftly, especially in Miami's and Tampa's low-lying areas, making pallets slippery and tarps strain under the weight. Every downpour becomes a life or death trial, for no warning siren ever sounds in time and rescue teams can only watch from afar. All of this blends into a stark tableau of survival where deprivation and danger never cease, and every passing moment reminds us that safety is the most distant luxury of all. Following the jagged concrete path beneath the bridge, you won't see signs reading "Keep Out" or "Under Surveillance." Here, there are no rules except the law of survival. Those who move fastest endure, those who lag behind must yield their place in the ragged crowd. No patrolling police, no wandering health workers, only an overwhelming silence occasionally shattered by the clang of an old gas cylinder or the rustle of a broom sweeping fallen leaves. They, the inhabitants of this lawless land, have mostly rejected all official aid. Some spent months queuing for meal vouchers, only to return with empty stomachs. Others believe the support system merely ticks their names off a list and forgets them. Trust has thus dried up, leaving only untamed freedom. They fend for themselves, protect themselves, and look out for one another. For some, life far from government eyes feels safer than anywhere else. They build shanties under overpasses, beyond the reach of traffic cameras. Settle at the edge of urban thickets, where streetlights never penetrate. Their nylon tents and algae green tarps vanish amid the dense foliage, a secret home no one has the right to invade. By day, they hide like woodland birds, evading passersby's gaze. By night, they gather around small fires, trading relief goods and sharing word of upcoming charity distributions. Soft laughter echoes through the stillness, a reminder that, even without laws, humanity endures. Yet even that fragile camaraderie flickers like embers in the wind, for any sudden gust or unexpected patrol could erase this fragile kingdom in an instant. In this lawless land, freedom is paid for with perpetual vigilance, and safety remains the furthest horizon. While the city above soars in triumph with ringtone melodies and luxury cars gliding down the boulevard, life beneath the bridge goes on. No rules, no protection, only the sheer will to survive shoulder to shoulder with kindred, weathered souls. As the gleaming towers of Florida reach skyward and lavish resorts sprout like mushrooms after rain, few notice the ever-widening chasm between two worlds. Tourists flock to the turquoise seas, carrying wads of dollars, while the local workers, the hands that built and brightened this state, are pushed to the periphery. Prime real estate and luxury enclaves are approved in an instant, while the already meager pool of affordable housing shrinks further in the name of profit. On the bustling streets, these people were once the silent heartbeat. Servers pouring cold beer for beachgoers, drivers shuttling guests between Miami Beach and the airport, caretakers helping visitors soak up the sun, snap photos, and savor their holidays. They helped forge Florida's tourist wonder, then quietly disappeared behind closed doors. Now, they have become the city's invisible ghosts, hidden in corners a system has accidentally or deliberately forgotten. When the stage lights dim and the music festival ends, they have no role but to exist. And this unchecked surge of development has driven them further from the heart of the society that once welcomed them. In the intoxication of profit and prestige, Florida has forgotten the hands still gripping the scorching sand, and they have been swept into darkness, buried beneath the glittering veil of paradise. Amid the storm of urban growth, the dream of stable housing for low-income families grows ever more fragile. Statistics show that in many Florida counties, there are only 13 affordable units for every 100 low-income households, grains of sand in a desert, far too few to quench the thirst for a solid roof. When they walk into a leasing office, they hear flowery promises of quality housing, but the deposit alone costs twice a month's wage, and the short-term lease spells relentless uncertainty. When the month ends, they must move again. When the lease runs out, anxiety returns. In Miami and Orlando, the busiest hubs, average incomes barely cover the cost of a single, low-priced room, while rents climb steeply every year. Along the main thoroughfares, rooms for rent signs stand shoulder to shoulder but conceal unfair clauses, exorbitant electricity, water, and service fees that can consume a tenant's entire paycheck the moment it arrives. All of this unfolds in the swirl of one-month leases, preventing them from building financial stability or negotiating a steady rate. The service industry, once a lifeline for thousands of workers, has now become overtly seasonal. In peak season, they scramble through unpaid overtime shifts. In the low season, many lose their jobs and see their incomes plummet. They are like fragile leaves on a raging flood. As long as there's work, they scrape by. When the orders dry up, they drift helplessly. And then COVID-19 struck like a hammer blow to the tourism economy. Hotels that once brimmed with guests suddenly emptied, restaurants slashed staff en masse, and travel transportation all but froze. Tens of thousands of workers lost their jobs overnight. Chefs, shuttle drivers, receptionists, all became regulars at charity soup kitchens. Makeshift tarps under bridges sprang up in increasing numbers, living proof of an unprecedented housing crisis. With scarce supply, soaring living costs, and unstable employment, everything conspired into a vicious, inescapable cycle of poverty. The dream of a stable home, once taken for granted by many, has become a distant memory, and the shanty towns on the outskirts now stand as the only place they can call home. When the streetlights glow dimly, long lines of homeless people still wait patiently outside social service centers, hoping for a small subsidy. Yet the harsh reality is that fewer than 5% of low-income renters actually receive assistance, only 5 out of 100, leaving the other 95 to fend for themselves by any means. That figure is a stark wake-up call. The system has nearly failed at its most basic point of access. Application reviews drag on for months, while each passing day can push a family further down the ladder of hardship. One form gets forwarded, another is rejected, and they flounder amid paperwork and vague appointment dates. Many have broken down in tears in cold hallways, exhausted and discouraged that their urgent need for immediate shelter receives no timely response. In some cities, in an effort to clean up urban appearances, regulations against homelessness have been enacted. Bans on sleeping in public, fines for camping, even the removal of tents and tarps without any plan for relocation. No camping, and please do not sleep on benches signs proliferate, yet safe sleep remains a distant remembrance for them. They're pushed further away, circling through neighborhoods seeking a place to spend the night, only to face the same ordeal again the next day. Meanwhile, public shelters, once thought to be a last refuge, are perpetually overburdened. Bunk beds are crammed together, common rooms are shabby, and staff working from dawn till dusk still cannot process applications, provide healthcare, or guide social reintegration fast enough. With limited beds and an ever-rising need for space, a cruel paradox emerges. There is nowhere to go, yet one is not permitted to stay. From these lifeless numbers, we see a social support system cracking at the seams, unable to distribute enough aid, unable to operate swiftly, and even using laws to push the poor out of sight. And when the curtain of assistance falls, thousands remain outside, on cold sidewalks, waiting for a glimmer of hope, as if for a sunrise that never comes. Amid the throngs of people along Miami's boulevards, an invisible prejudice persists. Seeing tattered clothing, passers-by hastily assume addiction or criminality. In fact, over 50% of Florida's homeless lost their homes due to unstable incomes, not vice. This statistic comes from recent reports by Florida's Department of Community Development, confirming that the primary causes are precarious wages, ever-rising rents, and unsupported medical expenses. Yet even in newspapers and everyday conversations, the story is twisted into, "They chose that life," or "Only lazy people run out of options." Such personal blame obscures an outdated, unjust system that has persisted for decades. While financial aid packages for renters failed to reach enough recipients, punitive policies, like banning public sleeping, only deepen the wound. Real data also show that only 1 in 4 homeless people has ever contacted a social service center. The other 3/4 have never received any legal or psychological counseling. Pushed to society's margins, they have no chance to explain their circumstances, no place to nurture hope, only like crabs scuttling before the tide, endlessly circling the vicious cycle of lack, sufficiency, and loss. Therefore, blending journalistic romance with ethical urgency here isn't about glossing over or glorifying. It's about placing the numbers on a fair scale, so each of us can recognize that Florida's darkness is not an individual problem, but a misbeat in a community that has yet to learn empathy and solidarity. In the heart of the city, as skyscrapers rise daily, proposed social housing projects, meant as lifelines for low-income families, face fierce opposition from local residents. They erect signs reading "No affordable units," citing property devaluation, traffic congestion, or increased crime risk. The cry of NIMBY, "Not in my backyard," echoes through council chambers, stalling projects while hundreds of families wait for a decent roof. Moreover, many free food distribution sites offering warm meals to the needy are repeatedly forced to close. Reasons given: lack of health permits, failure to meet food safety standards, or obstruction of sidewalks. The poignant scene of volunteers offering noodle boxes is punished by camera scrutiny, wooden benches and tables neatly stacked under removal orders. testifying that goodwill also needs permission. Meanwhile, authorities seem to hide behind paperwork. Citizens await detailed progress reports, yet figures on support budgets, approved applications, project start dates appear only in internal memos. Public transparency is too great a demand for the current capacity. As a result, amid countless pledges, homeless people don't know when, where, or by what criteria they will be helped. These policies, instead of uniting the community, become invisible barriers that push the poor deeper into the shadows, rendering even the most earnest aid efforts meaningless without consensus and transparency. Under the 17th Street Causeway Bridge in Fort Lauderdale, where rows of tarps align like temporary homes, police only dare to speed by. This capital of homelessness has grown too fast, beyond any patrol's control. Similarly, in the Everglades sprawling wetlands, where mangroves envelop haphazard camps, authorities have virtually lost track. The damp dirt road, covered in green moss, becomes as slippery as ice when saltwater rises each evening. Streetlights are feeble and dull, barely illuminating the fallen trunks lining the edge. At night, they rely on handheld flashlights, and even those beams flicker in the misty spray. No one has an accurate count of how many shelter here, and no agency accepts long-term responsibility. Cleanup campaigns are swift, tents swept away, trash hauled off then. Silence. Weeks later, tents sprout again like mushrooms after rain, and people return hopeful for a moment's peace until the next storm. In this space, the government's letting go is not only a matter of security or order, but also an unspoken declaration. These people do not deserve lasting care. Where the law does not tread, compassion seems abandoned too. They erect their own world, and in that world, life's instability will sooner or later be paid for by the constant dangers that stalk them every second, with no one on hand to save them. Amid the whirlwind of statistics, few pause to hear the sigh in every weary step. Most of them did not lose their homes because aid was insufficient, but because living costs surged like floodwaters. Gas prices, electricity bills, medical expenses all shot up in tandem while incomes dwindled with the seasons. They told me with tired voices, "Each month, I spend 70% of my salary on rent, then divide the rest between 3 meals and buying eye drops for my child." The gap between earnings and expenses is etched into every wrinkle on their faces, drying up any belief in a brighter future. Some are swept up in a vortex of job loss, illness, and runaway medical costs. I met Maria by a small tent beside the canal, her arm still aching from surgery, while hospital bills towered like mountains. And with each passing day, she faces a wrenching choice: buy medicine or keep her tent's rent paid. The pills and glass bottles have become more precious than food. When they can no longer stand, life's current pushes them back even further, and now their nylon tent is little more than a makeshift latrine, offering no real shelter. Behind every person lies a childhood scarred by abuse, family addiction, and broken homes without a helping hand. Many shared that they grew up to the sound of shouting and the smell of alcohol, only to return to the streets in search of so-called freedom, a freedom that consumes every shred of security. Some 35 to 40% of tent camp residents choose not to enter public shelters, not because they don't know where they are, but because they want to control their own lives. In my tent, I'm still in charge. In a shelter, I become dependent, confided a middle-aged man. For them, security isn't steel doors and 24/7 surveillance, but the right to decide each meal, each night's sleep, despite the mud, the mosquitoes, and the storms outside. Dry numbers serve only as reminders. Behind every percentage point is a story stained with blood and tears. After each dengue fever case, hours of shivering in a cold night. Under every collapsed tent, a trembling despair waiting to erupt. And once we understand this, it is time not just to sympathize, but to act. On Clearwater Beach, waves glitter under golden sun, and a 5-star hotel stands proudly amid the bustle. Guests sip cocktails, music drifting along Gulf to Bay Boulevard. Just steps away, under parked trees or beside the highway, bleak gray nylon tents emerge, fragile roofs against wind and rain. Weak flashlight beams, flickering campfires, and the hum of mosquitoes remind us of the struggle that thousands of homeless people endure. Downtown Orlando has seen a 25% increase in homelessness, and Tampa Port nearly 30% over the past 2 years. These figures are not mere statistics, but reflect reality. As the city rises, someone must pay with housing insecurity. Businesses, once sparkling with neon signs, now erect steel fences and install surveillance cameras to keep uninvited visitors at bay after dark. The boundary between two worlds is a glass wall and a steel fence. On one side, vibrant light. On the other, silent darkness. Only when we see both wealth and poverty together do we realize that Florida is not just a sun-soaked paradise, but also a place where lives wait for a glimmer of hope. As dawn breaks over gleaming golf course fairways, in a hidden corner of the city, low-income workers rise early to carry sacks of rice for relief. Florida's urban priorities lie with luxury resorts, where tourists leisurely play golf beneath swaying palms and shimmer on artificial lakes. Malls sprout like mushrooms, filled with luxury brands, minimalist cafes, and ever-crowded shopping streets. Meanwhile, families with limited choices are forced to move to the far suburbs, where no bus line runs end-to-end, clinics lie miles away, and grocery markets open only once a week. They pedal their lives on old bicycles or squeeze onto the earliest bus, racing to make it to work on time. Every moment spent waiting at a bus stop is another confrontation with scorching sun, stormy rain, and the fear that the next bus may never come. New high-rise buildings have sprung up side by side, dedicating almost all their apartments to short-term visitors or selling them off to foreign investors. Every polished tile in a hotel lobby, every reflective glass wall seems to proclaim in no uncertain terms, "This place is not for you." According to a report by the Florida Department of Construction, only 3 to 5% of all newly zoned housing stock is designated as affordable units. The rest caters to those who can pay rents 5 to 10 times the average local worker's salary. And the result is that, as you gaze at streets aglow with lights, remember that a mere thin line on a map can drop you into a different world, one where zoning policy has already written off its most vulnerable residents. When profit reigns supreme, social justice and equal opportunity become luxuries. Every new luxury development that opens its doors extinguishes the hope of a stable home for thousands and makes the question development for whom more urgent than ever. Following a quiet back road, you'll come upon the unnamed tent camps cloaked beneath highways and bridges, locations that don't appear on any map but have endured year after year. Most of the residents here are African American, Latinx, and indigenous people, even though they represent a minority of the overall population. The legacy of racial segregation and Jim Crow-era zoning still runs deep: underfunded schools, high tuition costs, and dwindling job access. When the doors of opportunity slam shut, many families spiral into unstable incomes that can no longer afford rent. As a result, these unnamed tent camps spring up everywhere, from the sidewalks of downtown Orlando to the fringes of Tampa's port, standing as living proof of multi-generational inequality. Understanding this pain is the first step toward dismantling the invisible barriers and restoring equal opportunity to every community. Amid the glittering promises, several Housing First programs have been approved, kindling a flicker of hope. Yet when you look closer, dozens of affordable units remain awaiting implementation. Time drags on through survey phases, design approvals, and permit applications. Once a project finally breaks ground, there often aren't enough social workers or case managers to operate it. The new buildings may boast a handful of show apartments, but residents across the region still wait in vain. Moreover, legal wrangling over land and zoning keeps many plans in limbo for years. Administrators complain of bureaucratic hurdles, while hopeful families grow weary of waiting. And even when someone does secure a home, rental subsidies last only 3 to 4 months, far too short for tenants to stabilize their employment or reintegrate into the community. When the subsidy ends, they return to the streets, caught in a revolving door of move in, move out, proving that current policies are little more than stopgap measures, lacking the durability of true, long-term solutions. We often ask, can we get homeless people into houses? But a more important question is, can they keep those homes permanently? When policy focuses solely on filling apartments and overlooks post-move-in support, financial counseling, job training, mental health services, its impact is as brief as a candle flickering in the wind. Hundreds of families may be placed in new homes, But after a few months, subsidies expire and they return to tarp shelters, carrying with them disappointment and a deep sense of abandonment. Current policies merely douse the flames of crisis. They lack the comprehensive support network needed to tackle root causes: poverty, psychological instability, and barriers to sustainable employment. Until we recognize that having a home means more than a locked door and four walls, that it requires peace of mind, a long-term plan, and a supportive community, this vicious cycle will continue to spin, and Florida will remain a place where two worlds cannot touch. When you look up and see luxury resorts glittering with festive lights, the turquoise sea embracing fine white sands, know that just below, dense urban thickets shroud dilapidated tents where the sleep of thousands remains unprotected. Tourism is not just about enjoying beautiful sights. It's about connection, knowing a destination and the lives hidden behind its glamour. Please share this video so more people learn that Paradise, Florida also has a dark side that must be revealed. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the truths we uncover across America. And in the comments, let us know what struck you most after watching this video. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you at the next destination, where untold stories are still waiting to be heard.